Hayden Panettiere is dead at just 36, and the news is leaving fans with one haunting question. How could someone who had only recently been opening up about her life and looking toward a new chapter be gone so suddenly? The actress, known around the world for Heroes, Nashville, and the Scream franchise, had been back in the spotlight after years of personal struggles. Now her representative has confirmed her death, while important details surrounding what happened remain unclear. And as fans look back at Hayden's final chapter, there's much more to this story than her Hollywood career. Some of the most painful moments of her life had only recently been revealed. The news broke suddenly, leaving fans and Hollywood stunned. Hayden Panettiere's representative confirmed that the actress had died at 36, with the statement describing her as an incredible light who brought joy to millions. But while her death has been confirmed, the circumstances surrounding it remain unclear. Reports say law enforcement responded to an incident involving Hayden, and an investigation is now underway. At this point, authorities have not publicly established a cause of death, and no responsible outlet should treat online speculation as fact. That uncertainty has made the story even more difficult for fans to process. Hayden had spent much of her life in the spotlight, growing up in front of millions before becoming one of television's most recognizable young stars. Now, people are revisiting her career, her struggles, and the final months of her life, searching for context while waiting for official answers. And behind the breaking headlines was a career that had started decades earlier, when Hayden was still just a child. Long before the headlines and personal struggles, Hayden Panettiere was already making a name for herself in Hollywood. She started working as a child and quickly showed that she was more than just another young face on television. In 2000, she appeared in Remember the Titans alongside Denzel Washington, playing Cheryl Yost and gaining wider attention for her performance. But the role that truly changed everything came a few years later. In 2006, Hayden stepped into the role of Claire Bennett on NBC's Heroes. The character was a teenage cheerleader with an extraordinary ability to heal, and the series quickly became a major television hit. Hayden's performance turned her into one of the most recognizable young actresses of her generation. At a remarkably young age, she was suddenly dealing with the kind of fame most actors spend decades chasing. Magazine covers, interviews, red carpets, and millions of fans became part of everyday life. But behind that success was a young woman growing up under an enormous spotlight, and eventually, that spotlight would become much harder to escape. And just when audiences thought they knew what Hayden could do, she took on another role that would define an entirely different chapter of her career. Hayden's next major chapter proved that Heroes was only the beginning. In 2012, she took on the role of Juliette Barnes in ABC's Nashville, playing a talented but troubled country music star. The character gave Hayden a chance to show a much more mature side of her acting, and her performance earned award nominations while introducing her to an entirely different audience. But television wasn't the only place where fans remembered her. Hayden also became part of the Scream franchise, first appearing as Kirby Reed in Scream 4. Years later, she returned to the character in Scream 6, giving longtime fans one of the franchise's most anticipated comebacks. She also expanded beyond traditional acting, lending her voice and performance to the video game Until Dawn. By this point, Hayden had already built an impressive resume across television, film, and gaming, all before turning 30. That's what makes her story so difficult to process. Behind the familiar face was an actress who had spent almost her entire life working, constantly adapting as Hollywood changed around her. But while her career kept evolving, her personal life was becoming increasingly difficult to keep separate from the public eye. And that's where the story takes a much more personal turn. Behind the success, Hayden had also been dealing with struggles that she eventually chose to discuss publicly. Years of fame had placed enormous pressure on her, and she became increasingly open about addiction, postpartum depression, and the challenges of trying to rebuild her life while constantly being watched. Rather than hiding everything, Hayden eventually used her own experiences to tell her story. In her memoir, This Is Me, A Reckoning, she reflected on growing up in Hollywood, becoming a mother, relationships, recovery, and some of the most painful chapters of her life. Her decision to speak openly gave fans a different perspective on the woman they thought they knew from television. But those revelations also showed just how complicated her journey had been. Hayden wasn't simply a former child star trying to return to Hollywood. She was someone attempting to move forward while carrying years of experiences that had followed her into adulthood, and then came another devastating loss. One that Hayden later described as profoundly affecting her. It was the death of her younger brother, Jansen, and the impact it had on her would become one of the most emotional parts of her story. One of the deepest emotional blows in Hayden's later life came in 2023, when her younger brother, Jansen Panettiere, died at just 28. The loss devastated Hayden, and she later spoke publicly about how difficult it was to process what had happened. In interviews surrounding her memoir, Hayden described the grief and guilt she carried after losing her brother. She also made it clear that grief could affect every part of your life, even when you're trying to keep moving forward. For someone who had already spent years dealing with intense public pressure, losing a close family member added another painful chapter to her story. But it's important not to turn that tragedy into an explanation for Hayden's death. The circumstances surrounding her passing remain under investigation, and no confirmed connection has been established. What we do know is that Jansen's death became a major part of Hayden's personal story, one she eventually chose to share with the public rather than keep completely private. And, despite everything she had been through, Hayden was still trying to rebuild. In fact, shortly before her death, she had begun opening another chapter of her life, one that made her sudden passing even harder for fans to understand. In the months leading up to her death, Hayden appeared to be entering a different phase of her life. After years of keeping much of her personal journey private, she had begun speaking more openly about the experiences that shaped her, particularly through her memoir, This Is Me, A Reckoning. Her return to the spotlight wasn't simply about promoting old projects. Hayden was telling her own story in her own words, reflecting on childhood fame, motherhood, recovery, relationships, and the devastating loss of her brother. For many fans, seeing her speak so honestly created the feeling that she was finally reclaiming a part of her life that had long been defined by headlines. She was also still making occasional public appearances. Her recent appearance at LaGuardia Airport in May drew attention because she appeared relatively low-key, accompanied by a friend as interest surrounding her memoir continued to grow. Then came her final social media activity. In late July, Hayden shared a photo with photographer Randall Slavin, appearing happy alongside friends. On its own, it seemed like an ordinary update, the kind of post fans might scroll past without thinking twice. But knowing what happened afterward makes those final moments feel completely different. Now, instead of discussing what Hayden might do next, fans are left looking back at what she left behind. And that brings us to the biggest unanswered question surrounding her death. Right now, the biggest questions surrounding Hayden's death remain unanswered. Her representative has confirmed that she died at 36, while reports say law enforcement responded to an incident and an investigation is underway. But a confirmed cause of death has not been publicly announced. That distinction matters. As more people search for answers, social media can quickly fill in the gaps with rumors and theories. But until authorities release verified information, those claims remain unconfirmed. There is also no evidence that Hayden's previous struggles or personal losses explain what happened to her. What can be confirmed is the legacy she leaves behind. From her early role in Remember the Titans, to Claire Bennett in Heroes, Juliette Barnes in Nashville, and Kirby Reed in the Scream franchise, Hayden built a career that reached millions of people. And perhaps her most lasting contribution was the decision to speak honestly about the difficult parts of her life. She spent years being known through characters, headlines, and public speculation. Near the end, she was trying to tell her own story. At just 36, Hayden Panettiere's life ended far earlier than anyone expected. The unanswered questions may eventually become clearer, but the characters she created and the memories she left with fans will remain. And sometimes the hardest part of a story like this isn't what we know. It's realizing how much we may never know.